USHA. It appears they are speaking with troops out by the ocean. I believe this is in the Oceanside area of Southern California. We do know that the Navy 250th anniversary celebration is going to be taking place today, Hal. You yourself live in Southern California. What are you tracking today as far as this event goes?
Well, I've been stationed at Camp Pendleton multiple times over many years. I know that area very well. That's I believe that's Red Beach areas where they're looking down on. That's where they're doing the big amphibious landing, amphibious exercise. That is where forces will be coming in from the sea. Some will be some of our new amphibious combat vehicles. Now, those particular Marines in the surf there might be amphibious reconnaissance Marines, and they might be doing a hydrographic survey. That's actually in my various incarnations, I was amphibious recon, and that's something we do as you go in the water. On the other hand, those probably because of the exercise, those might be safety swimmers as well, just in case anybody gets swept into the surf. That would be a very logical thing too. But what you're seeing, you're going to see amphibious combat vehicles come ashore. You'll probably see our air cushion vehicles, our hovercraft, if you will be bringing in heavier vehicles into shore. You will probably see helicopters. You'll see the tilt wing, vertical takeoff and landing Ospreys bringing troops in. What's interesting is that they'll also be bringing in artillery, and the artillery will probably be coming in. It could be brought in by helicopter, but I would imagine it'll be probably coming in on the LCACs, the hovercraft, and they will come in and they're going to set up on firing positions, and there are firing positions. There you go. There's some fixed-wing aircraft flying over, and okay. In the background, you see those are pyrotechnics. Those are not actual artillery rounds. That's some stuff to add some realism. And it's not uncommon to use a lot of smoke in amphibious assaults to hide where the landing craft are. Okay, there you see the helicopters. Okay, all right. I think those are Navy helicopters, I believe. They might be, I'm looking at some feet dangling off. They might be doing what's called casting, which is one of the insertion techniques used for amphibious reconnaissance forces, where they will fly low and then they will jump out of the helicopters into the water. And you might see that. Just watch, and you may see some Marines popping into the water. They could be Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs work with the Marines on amphibious landings, and so you might be seeing some of that happening there. In fact, I think that's exactly what's going on. The goal is obviously to get as close to the water as possible. That's how you avoid injuries. Having done this more than once, you do not want to do a long fall or long jump. There they are. You just saw them. They're casting out of the helicopter into the water, and they will be swimming ashore either as a scout element, which is possible, but more likely than not, as part of the reconnaissance efforts dealing with the actual exercise itself. Now, this is, again, more of a demonstration than an actual training exercise. What you're seeing here in a actual operation would have happened a long time ago, well before you'd see any ships off the coast coming in to do landings. This is really just to demonstrate the capability of doing casting. It's not unique to the United States Marine Corps, but it's just something I think we do very well. We train for it all the time. Navy SEALs do it as well, and more specialized units of the Army will do this, and other foreign forces that do things like this. It's a very specialized insertion technique, but it is a technique used in surf zones. So they're showing the Vice President and his wife what we do with that, and matter of fact, kind of a side note, I think the last time I did that, the current Commandant of the Marine Corps was actually in our recon battalion, our reconnaissance battalion, and I served with him during that time. So that goes back quite a few years. I just won't get into details on that, but it's just one of the things we do. Now they're also going to have the artillery set up ashore. They'll be firing, and because they're firing over the I-5 freeway and over the Amtrak rail line that goes through the base along the coast, the governor of California has decided to shut down the I-5. And if you're in Southern California right now, on certain news channels, you're getting nothing but coverage of the traffic mayhem that has caused shutting down the I-5 freeway.
Can you see this, Hal?
Go ahead.
Jump up on here.
I was just going to ask, can you make out what we're seeing in the sky?
I think that's an F-35, I think.
You are the perfect person to have on the line while we're watching all this, by the way. We didn't expect this to pop up right now. I got to ask you.
They're not doing naval gunfire. That was something that was out there, that they would do naval gunfire, and I just didn't see that because of you see the amount of air activity out there with the helicopters and the fixed-wing aircraft. Last thing you want to do is have a lot of that and have naval gunfire going at the same time. When you're doing something, this is really for the vice president. This is to show off our capabilities. Okay, that looks like a light armored. That's a light armored vehicle. And I was the intelligence officer in a light armored vehicle battalion a very, very long time ago. But that's something that we use for doing reconnaissance ashore and doing a lot of other things as well. And those look like what we call LAV-25. So I have a 25 millimeter Bushmaster gun on board. In the back of those things is a section of scouts that will dismount and can do scouting operations in and around the vehicle. And it's a great way to get in really fast, to find those gaps and seams, if you will, on the battlefield and move stuff in fast. Okay, there you see, those are I think those are probably amphibious recon Marines. Those could be Raiders. And that is one of the things we do. I've done that many times. You pop out of a surf zone and then you move ashore. And this is part of the lead element that would come ashore. Again, this is kind of artificial in that they're doing this in the middle of the day. We might do training in the middle of the day, but we don't actually do this in the middle of the day. We do it at night. And there's a variety of techniques where we try to get as close as we can to the beach. We look very closely at the tides to make sure that we're not having to walk across a big open beach. And by the way, you can see for purposes of this, they did a lot of things like actually go out there and groom the beach to make it a little easier to do this exercise. Again, it's for demonstration purposes. It's not for actual training purposes. And so they come ashore. So that's showing that. And then that looks like, yep, those are the amphibious combat vehicles bringing Marines ashore as part of the assault element. And in reality, none of this would be that close together. You wouldn't see Marines casting in the ocean and Marines coming ashore like that. And they were already in close to the coast before they actually did before they actually came ashore. So a lot of that was kind of pre-positioned. And you're seeing a lot of this stuff, which is really just to demonstrate the capabilities and the different phases of an amphibious assault, albeit they don't happen all like this. They usually happen under periods of darkness, but you can't really see what's going on during periods of darkness. So that's why they're doing this in the afternoon right now.
So Hal, explain to us the significance of this part of Southern California, Camp Pendleton, Oceanside. Why is it that we're seeing the Vice President, and why is it that we're seeing this Marine 250 event happening here?
Well, this is the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps. You saw the Navy had their 250th this year. They were founded 250 years ago. The Army did their little parade in Washington, D.C. The Army wore historic uniforms and marched through D.C. We're actually doing something very operational, and I'll just leave it at that. But we're showing the capabilities of the Marine Corps and what we do. And we do this uniquely well. There is no other service in the world that does this maneuver from the sea, assault from the sea, ship to shore movement, if you will. We are the premier amphibious force on the planet, and so we're demonstrating this. Camp Pendleton is also kind of a unique piece of terrain, if you will. It's a Marine Corps base between Orange County and San Diego County. Actually, the border runs through it. In Southern California, if you go down the I-5, you see nothing but built-up areas, houses, industrial areas, all sorts of things, office buildings, and then you come to this long stretch of green along the coast between larger LA metropolitan area, Orange County, and San Diego, and that is this is Camp Pendleton, and we do all kinds of training there. It goes very far inland, but it has a lot of coastal area, and this is a rather unique area that we have that we can do this. And okay, now you're seeing. I'm going to watch this real carefully to see what I can. I see the vice president now, but okay, those are the amphibious combat vehicles. Those have wheels. That's a big change too. Previously, our amphibious vehicles that we would use for ship to shore were tracked vehicles. And with the light armored vehicles I showed you earlier, those were that was a movement towards using wheeled vehicles. Provides a lot of mobility, also provides a lot less damage to the ground or to the roads and the road network. But there's a lot of advantages to wheeled vehicles, and so we did this big transition over the last few years of moving towards these wheeled vehicles as our primary amphibious vehicle, amphibious armored vehicle, if you will, if you want to use that term, that we use for these assault operations. And so very different. It's not, the days when a Higgins boat would come ashore and then the ramp would drop and we run ashore. That has not been true for a very, very long time. And really, with amphibious operations, you don't want to run across the shore like you see in a lot of the movies and things. You'd actually like to get on the shore and to get as far inland as you can before you dismount light infantry, or what other sources call light infantry. We just call infantry, and you're seeing that here.
And for those who might not be aware, and I would assume many people are aware that watch us on Saturday afternoons, Hal Kempfer is a retired Marine intelligence officer. Hal, you yourself, you have experience here in this area?
A lot of experience in that area. I have crossed that sand many times, and what you saw with the Marines out there that were coming ashore in the wetsuits, and coming across the beach in what would have been at night a more clandestine manner, and doing that. I've done that. I have crossed that beach in amphibious vehicles, or what we call Amtraks, amphibious tractors. The previous version of what we have now, I've crossed that beach there. And what's interesting is there is a section down there that you can't really see, but it's commonly used. It's a perfect beach for landing, but there's a blue heron nesting area right at the high water mark, the high tide mark, and we have to all stop and then go around that. Now, hey, if you look in the background there, you'll see an amphibious vertical envelopment. You'll see helicopters, but you also see our tilt wing Ospreys in the background. And they're flying. Now they come in, those wings will tilt up so they fly like a regular aircraft, and they can get up to about 350 knots. And then the wings will tilt, they're straight like an aircraft, and then they will tilt up and they can take off and land like a helicopter. And that is one of our primary infantry transports more than just infantry, but it transports troops from ship to shore, and provides a tremendous lift capability. They can go far inland, and they can move a lot faster than regular helicopters. And so that's one of the things it does. And it also has some very impressive capabilities in landing. Okay, here you see it. That's the Osprey. And you see where the wings have tilted up, and the engines actually act like helicopter propellers. And they're getting ready to land on one of the bluffs around that landing area where they're doing the demonstration. And he's coming in. I don't know. Okay, for safety purposes, they have the fire truck out there. Very smart move. And so they'll be landing, and you'll see troops coming out of the back tactically, and they will quickly move out of the aircraft and set up a 360 tactical formation. And then normally they will move on to whatever their assigned objective is in a very tactical manner. And that's what you'll be seeing. If the camera was on them, you would see that going on. Right here, I believe you're seeing the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force commander and other senior leaders that are explaining to the vice president and his wife exactly what evolution is happening at any given time, explaining the various capabilities. And okay, there you see a fast mover jet.
Yeah, those things are fast.
A couple fast movers. that are moving over. And in an amphibious operation, you would see a lot of fixed wing aviation, basically hitting various targets. But that wouldn't happen just with the attack. There would also be some preparatory stuff that would have happened long before that as well. There's also with an actual amphibious operation, there would have been a lot of deception operations all up and down the coast to try and confuse any enemy as to where we're actually doing the landing, so that they would disperse their forces to cover a lot of different areas. We would try to confuse them as to when we're doing the landings as well. We would like to confuse them as to how we're doing the landings, and so that would have been a normal thing. But obviously, as a amphibious demonstration, you see everything's been compressed, and since you couldn't actually see that deception stuff, I don't think there was any deception except maybe written on some page as part of a larger plan.
You know,
but now you're seeing. Go ahead.
For those who are unaware, Hal, the vice president himself is a former Marine, correct?
He is. Yes, he's a Marine. He's a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom and also the War on Terror. And he was an NCO, non-commissioned officer. He was a corporal. And using the GI Bill, he went off to college and eventually, I think, graduated from Yale Law School, as I recall. By the way, where you see now, that's up on a bluff. Okay, behind it is that blue heron nesting area I talked about, down in the lowlands down there. This is a little combat village that we built some years back. You can actually see it from the freeway, and that is to simulate built-up areas ashore, which we encounter more and more. There's just a lot of buildings and stuff that are ashore, and they're using that. They're doing basically house-to-house stuff, clearing that village in that regard. Now, what you're seeing here is a very impressive display of our amphibious combat vehicles. They're parked along the shoreline there. In an actual amphibious operation, you wouldn't stop them right there. They would have moved inland very quickly. But this is really just to demonstrate what they look like and how they come ashore. And one of the things you notice is how they are dispersed up and down the shoreline. A lot of people don't realize how difficult this is, but maintaining proper distance, dispersing your forces in an amphibious operation is absolutely critical. When you're out there moving through a surf zone, when you're doing long ship-to-shore movements, believe me, it is very easy for vehicles to start bunching up. It's very important to make sure you're going to the exact location on the beach. And whereas we have all sorts of things like GPS now, there's also things that can be out there used to jam GPS and other things. And if you don't think this is important, look at what the Army did during the landings in Normandy. You know, the famous Pointe du Hoc cliff assault, and that's something I practiced years back, was amphibious cliff assault. Army Rangers did that. And one of the reasons it's famous for the amount of combat on that cliff assault was that they got lost and went to the wrong series of cliffs initially, and then realized they were at the long series of cliffs and then had to readjust. So rather than a night cliff assault, it became a daylight cliff assault. And of course, the rest is all history. But it does show you that there is a certain amount of rigor, art, if you will, along with technology that goes into making these things all come together.
How much of what we're seeing, Hal, to your knowledge at least, how much of the hardware that we're seeing here is exclusive only to the Americans? How much of what we're seeing is something that only we have?
The light armored vehicle you saw earlier, that's pretty exclusive. The Canadians have a thing called the Grizzly, and that's actually where we bought it from, was the Canadians. So they have something that looks very similar. The amphibious combat vehicles you see there, those right now, as far as I know, are exclusively with the United States Marine Corps. Nobody else has those things. And there you see basically a Marine talking about some of the things they were doing. I'm not quite sure what he was doing. It looks like he was wearing a flight suit. So I'm assuming he's a aviator that's come in. I don't know if he's just showing up to explain what he is, wearing his flight suit and carrying some of his gear, or if maybe he landed nearby and then came over and explained what was happening to the vice president and his wife. But they're probably explaining all the aviation stuff, that the aviation element that goes on to this. By the way, I should mention in a marine a marine amphibious operation that they will have 4 different elements. You have the obviously the ground combat element, and then you have the aviation element, and then you have a logistics element, and then you have a command and control or command element, and all of those are very busy. And usually, as you work your way around the Marine Corps, you can end up working in 2 or 3 of these different elements at any given time, or not at any given time, but throughout the course of your career, you can be working in these. And then, by the way, you see a naval officer there. That could be the commander of the Amphibious Task Force. And until the Marines are ashore and established, the commander of the Amphibious Task Force is actually the supreme commander, or the highest level commander in the amphibious operation. And then once the Marines are ashore and established, then the Marine commander takes full command of all the operations ashore that are going on. But that is part of that Navy Marine Corps team that you see.
We just saw another F-35 fly over. Hal, speak to me, from a point of personal pride, if you will. What does the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps mean to you?
Well, for any military force and for any country, of course, just being a country for as long as we've been a country is quite an achievement. If you look through the pantheon of history, so to speak. But for any military force, particularly one like the United States Marine Corps, the fact that we've been around for 250 years says a lot. And I'm sure there are some out there and say, well, there was that period after the Civil War where the Marine Corps was stood down for 15 years. Yeah, but for the Marine Corps birthday, we kind of go back to the establishment of the Marine Corps, and we've had a proud history going back that entire period of time. We have fought wars all over the place, as we've seen recently in Los Angeles. Sometimes Marines are employed here in the homeland and involved with civil support operations. In the case of Los Angeles, they were supporting ICE and federal authorities and protecting federal property. We have seen Marines employed in the homeland protecting the U.S. Mail Service, and Marines employed all around the world. And one of our specialties is what we call small wars, where we have gone around the world basically engaging in smaller military actions. You may recall Lebanon back in the 80s. You may recall that we were in Nicaragua, Haiti, and a variety of other places going further back before World War II. And the Marines have always been an expeditionary force. We're just, we'd often call ourselves the 911 force. If the president needed to do something, one of the first questions the president would ask is, where are the Marines? And we have Marine expeditionary units all around the world. That what's parked off or what's offshore in Venezuela right now is a Marine expeditionary unit that's standing by out there for whatever purpose they want to use it. There's also a amphibious ready group or amphibious group that would basically support the Marine operations, whatever that is. And they have a lot of capabilities that are unique to them as well. And again, working as a Navy and Marine Corps team to conduct these types of operations. So that's kind of what you're seeing here. It's a big demonstration of what the Marine Corps does. And of course, for the vice president, he probably has a more intuitive sense of what this is all about than most, because he's a Marine. But on the other hand, as you go through your career and stuff, you do different things. And what he's seeing here, these amphibious operations, during his time of service, I don't know that he ever did something like this. Okay, here come the LCACs. These are basically large hovercraft, and they'll be bringing the heavier trucks and things like that ashore. And the LCACs will probably, and in fact, I'm almost sure of it, they're bringing the artillery ashore, and it's the artillery firing from firing positions west of the I-5 freeway, west of the between the freeway and the ocean, firing from those fire positions that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, has seized upon as his reason to shut down the I-5. Now, these are higher angle of fire weapons, so they're not firing any rounds that would be close to the I-5 or shooting over, closely overhead over the I-5 freeway. But that's how they would come ashore, is through these LCAC vehicles. Now, these are Navy personnel that actually these are Navy assets and Navy personnel that are actually crewing the LCACs, and then the Marines are aboard. And because of the amount of there's just tremendous wind. They move very quickly. That in many cases, especially if you're assigned to a truck or another vehicle, first off, everything will be lashed down tightly. But there's actually a troop compartment on board where you go in and you basically stay in there while it's coming ashore, because if you're on the deck, you could end up getting scooped up and putting in significant harm's way if you're out on the deck while they're doing one of these things. So you actually stay inside the troop compartment, where you have no chance of succumbing to some of the aeronautical forces, if you will, in or around the craft.
Those things are
now
massive.
They're stopping, and they're lowering the hovercraft, the skirt around it. They're deflating that, if you will, by shutting down the engine. And then they will drop a ramp in the front, and the vehicles will come off the front of the ramp and go ashore and quickly move to wherever they're supposed to be set up. What I'm expecting to see with this particular one, based on what was in some of the press announcements, is I expect to see some trucks, and they will be towing artillery. That's what I expect to be seeing. And those will be the M777 or the M777s. With our oh no,
wow,
no, I take that back. These have light. I think those are light armored vehicles. Yeah, that has a light armored vehicle. And the light armored vehicles, even though the Marine Corps is amphibious, and this is one of our reconnaissance assets, they cannot actually do ship to shore. They look like they can, but they actually can't. And I say that because I'm old enough to remember when we did the test and evaluation to see if we could actually pull off ship to shore with these things. And that did not go well. And so they actually have to come in on the LCACs. I know they look very similar to the amphibious combat vehicles, but that is a deficiency, is that they actually cannot go through a surf zone. Or if you go through a surf zone, you accept an incredible amount of risk, because sometimes the waves will come up. There's a bow plane that extends out the front of the vehicle. And if the waves catch the bow plane, they can sometimes turn the vehicle sideways or some other things. And you end up with a very dynamic situation where everybody feels at great risk. So
how often are these used, other than for demonstration purposes?
Yeah, this is demonstration. Now, I'm watching this. I'm seeing if I don't know if they're going to front load the artillery, or they may just have a few artillery in some of the vehicle and some of the LCACs that they're going to set up just for the demonstration purposes. It kind of looks like they have a mix of vehicles. So I'm looking at a light armored vehicle platoon, and I'm assuming that's from first Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion, of which I am a proud veteran of that. And those are probably amphibious recon troops, reconnaissance troops right there. First Recon Battalion, I'm guessing, although they could be from the Raiders. That's very possible. Or they could be SEALs. They do use SEALs in some of these, and the Navy sometimes pushes very hard to make sure their SEALs are showcased, so I wouldn't be surprised. By the way, the Marine Raiders and Navy SEALs pretty much have identical mission profiles. They can do the same stuff, and a lot of the things that the SEALs do, the traditional what we call blue water SEALs or blue SEALs, not the ones that are quote tier 1, the ones that work for Joint Special Operations Commands, but the SEALs that go out on these things. In many cases, what amphibious reconnaissance Marines do and the SEALs do are somewhat interchangeable, and in some cases, depending on the pre-deployment training, The SEALs will spend a lot of time doing what we call door kicking missions, spend a lot of time shooting, doing hostage rescue training, stuff like that. And so some of the traditional missions the SEALs do, such as the hydrographic survey missions or going in to do reconnaissance along the beach, the SEALs won't do that, and that'll actually get turned over to the Marines because we spend more time training for that particular mission, and it's just something that we do more intuitively, and I think we do it better than the SEALs do as well. And I'm sure there's a SEAL or two out there going, "What's he talking about?" But that's just something that we do very well, and it's not uncommon that the SEALs will be used for some sort of special operation or raid or something further inland, while all the things tied with the amphibious assault itself will often they'll use those amphibious reconnaissance Marines to do that, just because that's what they train for, and their capabilities are a little bit more robust or current for that particular mission set.
So Hal, I think we've been having some connection issues, but I had been meaning to ask you when these large vehicles were pulling up, how often are these types of vehicles used for anything other than demonstration purposes?
Oh, it's used constantly. What you're seeing with the certainly with the trucks, the Humvees, the light armored vehicles, the LAV 25s and LAVs as a whole, and then those amphibious combat vehicles. Those are used as just regular part of training. You can see them used in amphibious assault. You will see them if you went to 29 Palms, which is in the Mojave Desert. You would see them being used to transport Marines out there. And you'd see them anywhere in the world where you see Marine operations. These are all standard equipment. And I'm pretty sure that this came from a Marine Expeditionary Unit and Amphibious Ready Group that was doing its workup training to go out on deployment. So at some point in the future, they're probably going to go out in the next few months, go on a 6-month deployment, across the Pacific and Indian Ocean area, potentially to the Middle East, and conduct a variety of training operations, exercises. And what's interesting is because they're amphibious, they might be doing something in the far northern reaches of Japan, Korea, and then go do something down the Philippines, and then turn around to go do something in the Middle East, and then go around and do something somewhere else like Australia. So when they do these operations around the Pacific and around the Indian Ocean, they will, our motto is that we fight in every climate and place, but in one 6-month deployment, they may hit just about every climate and place. And by the way, one of the things that we're spending a lot more time focused on is our operations in the Arctic. So they may hit some very extremely different climes and places, as you can well imagine, during a deployment, and all of that can happen with one unit, and it's very intense. Obviously, you have to think about the Marines themselves and the sailors. When they're deployed, they're gone. They're just simply gone for 6 months. That's quite an impact on their families back home. It puts a lot of extra work and certainly stress on their military spouse, especially if there's kids, and then they come back. But prior to leaving, they've been doing training exercises very akin to what you're seeing here on a pretty regular basis. So even before they deploy, that's 6 months before, they're extremely busy going through a long checklist of things that they have to, mission essential tasks, if you will, that they have to go through and have to meet the requirements to be ready to deploy for. And it's quite a bit of workup training that goes into it. So they are gone a lot before they deploy. They're gone a lot. They're completely gone while they're deployed. And then when they come back, usually we give them more time to spend with their families and kind of recover from a long deployment. But it kind of gives you an idea of what they're doing. I'm assuming we're probably going to we're seeing a mix of F-18s and F-35s today in the fixed wing. In fact, that's why I think I'm seeing is that they have a mix of aircraft. And these may be launched from carriers offshore, although I have a feeling that these are probably being launched out of the San Diego area, like Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, would be someplace I would imagine that a lot of these aircraft are being launched. They don't have to put a carrier offshore to bring in naval aviation off the coast of Camp Pendleton because it's right north of San Diego. So they're probably doing that, and that would be my guess on what they're doing there.
Just to reset for everybody who is just tuning in, Vice President JD Vance and his wife Usha are attending an amphibious assault demonstration. This is in Oceanside, California. By the way, JD Vance is the first Marine to ever hold the vice presidential office. This is taking place at Camp Pendleton as part of the U.S. Marine Corps' 250th anniversary celebration. The celebration itself is titled America's Marines 250 from Sea to Shore, a review of amphibious strength. The event is bringing together more than 15,000 Marines, sailors, veterans, and their families in a full-scale tribute to the Corps' legacy, according to Fox 5 San Diego. Vice President Vance was a former combat correspondent with the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing. He deployed to Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He is expected to deliver remarks later on today. We have been watching for the past half hour or so here as an amphibious assault demonstration has been shown to the Vice President. We also, I believe, do expect to hear from Secretary Pete Hegseth as well during today's events. Hal Kempfer being generous with his time. And I got to say, the timing was absolutely impeccable having you on to be able to describe piece by piece what we've been seeing. Hal, any final thoughts? Again, for those joining, Hal is a retired Marine intelligence officer. Any final thoughts on the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps before we let you go?
Well, this shows the capabilities that the Marine Corps have. There is probably nothing as complex as an amphibious operation. It is there's an entire planning process that we have that goes through this. I teach this planning process. I teach it to foreign officers around the world on how we do this. And we just do it better than anyone else. We have the ships, the capabilities that no one else has. But one of the things is that within the budget priorities, it's always tough for the Marine Corps to push for amphibious ships because the Navy likes some of their other ships as much or more. And so I'm sure that there's a little bit of talking to with the Vice President about naval shipbuilding and particularly naval amphibious ships and how essential they are and how we need to prioritize that. And I'm sure the Marine Corps is making a couple of comments about some of the other things that we are producing, like the amphibious combat vehicles and the replacement for the light armored vehicles, which are the same light armored vehicles I was in, 35 plus years ago when I was in 1st Light Armored Infantry Battalion, now called Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. So I'm sure there's a lot of discussion on all of this as far as what we need to do to keep our forces, capable, agile, and I'm sure, as Pete Hegseth would say, lethal. And this is an opportunity to kind of get a period of time with senior political leaders like the Vice President to say this. And of course, being a Marine, being the only Marine that I'm aware of that's been a Vice President, and I don't think we've had any Marines that were president that I recall. We've had naval officers, but not Marines. That this is kind of a unique opportunity, and I think some of the things that he's going to see here, he can take back to Washington D.C. and I'm sure there will be a number of discussions about how we can improve our amphibious landing capabilities, and so I think this is quite a demonstration. I'm just sorry that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, kind of politicized it by shutting down the I-5 freeway. I didn't really feel that was necessary. We do things like this all the time. There really isn't any risk to that. The only risk I know on the I-5 freeway is that drivers will get distracted watching all the Marine activity and not paying enough attention to what's on the road. But regardless, this is quite a demonstration.
A major artery, the 5 is, connecting San Diego to Los Angeles. JD Vance has been watching, and we will carry the speech live as soon as JD Vance steps up to we now have this live shot of the podium where we will eventually see him give remarks later. Presumably, we will see Secretary Pete Hegseth as well. Hal, such a wealth of knowledge. We can't thank you enough for breaking down the past half hour with us, watching some of this stuff. Take care. Have a good rest of your weekend, and hoorah.
Hoorah. All right.